couple of days ago, there were reports that the United States is now thinking of conducting strikes against Iran from bases in Romania.
The United States is thinking about conducting strikes against Iran from bases in Romania. And that tells you, well, he'll explain it.
Which I take as confirmation that American bases closer to Iran in the Persian Gulf area, including perhaps in Saudi Arabia itself, have become unworkable, unusable, because of the constant Iranian drone and missile strikes, and because there is
Where's Romania?
increasing shortages, there are increasing shortages of air defense interceptors capable of withstanding these Iranian drone and missile strikes.
Romania is all the way over here. Here. Right here. And so to Iran all the way over here. So bases nearby are so damaged that they're going to be conducting strikes from all the way in Romania. That's not a good sign for the United States.
Escalating.
But now it's time to go on to the main the title of this stream, which is the real reason regime change failed in Iran.
Shortly after the start of the American military operation, the American-Israeli operation against Iran, which began on the 28th of February, which very briefly also mentioned that Qaani had been arrested by the IRGC.
Qaani, this guy in Iran. Just listen to the rest of this. This, I think, explains everything.
And that he was suspected by the Iranian authorities of leaking information to the Americans and to the Israelis. Now, it's important to say here that there has been no official confirmation of this from the authorities, from the government of Iran. Now, I watched this video on Mole Hunt, and it struck me that the people who made it, whoever they are, appear to be, or want to give the impression that they are, extremely well informed. They discuss, for example, at extraordinary length, the internal discussions which supposedly have been taking place.
So yes, basically he's trying to say it comes from an authoritarian source, and I mostly agree. But this would explain so much. You'll see.
Within Iran's counterintelligence.
Fire reported near Dubai airport 15 minutes ago. Well, another drone strike probably.
Apparatus agency, which is a branch of the IRGC. How did they obtain that information? Who are these people precisely? And I have to say that I did wonder whether, assuming that the whole story, the whole video is not made up entirely from the broad cloth, as we say in Britain, whether perhaps it's based on information provided by some intelligence agency, most probably American or perhaps Israeli, just saying. But this is, again, a guess. Anyway, this video purports to be an account of the movements of General Qaani. General Qaani has been a senior officer of the Quds Force, which is the elite.
So General Qaani, the head of this elite force in Iran, and apparently he was a traitor.
Covert action unit of the IRGC, the same unit that was previously commanded by General Soleimani, who the Americans killed in Baghdad airport. From memory, I think it was in 2020. Anyway, General Qaani was Soleimani's deputy and successor, and the video points out that over the course of General Qaani's leadership of the Quds Force, the entire structure that General Soleimani built up in the Middle East, the militias in Iraq, the Assad government in Syria, Hezbollah, they've all suffered devastating losses, and that there's also been devastating losses in Iran itself, pointing to deep penetration by the American and Israeli intelligence services of Iran's government.
So this guy Qaani takes over leadership at this post And then he fucks over Assad in Syria, the Iraqi militia, basically all Iran's proxies, and Iran itself.
And of its senior security apparatus. And this video appears to link Qaani with this penetration. And in fact, it goes further and it suggests that Qaani was the key informant. And the evidence it gives for this, if true, and of course I don't know to what extent it is true, is compelling, that Qaani was supposed to attend all sorts of meetings, meetings with top officials like the former Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, and of course the former supreme leader of Iran, Khamenei himself, and that this would have provided Qaani with information about these meetings and the exact date and time and location of these meetings.
Exactly.
And through some seemingly extraordinarily fortunate coincidence, he seemed to be either leaving these meetings or failing to attend these meetings, despite being...
So all these meetings that he was supposed to attend, or he just happened to leave right before the attack, or he just was late to show up and the attack happened. Yeah, that's pretty suspicious, don't you think?
Invited to attend them just before the devastating strike took place. And the devastating strike in which all of the people, Nasrallah, Khamenei, all sorts of others, were killed, took place. Now, again, this is all very interesting. And the same video also suggests, also implies that Qaani might have been behind or played a role in engineering the assassination of Khanieh, the former head of Hamas, who was assassinated in a hotel room in Tehran on the very same day that the current Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, was being inaugurated, and that he might even have played some role in the pager attack that the Israelis conducted, which devastated much of the senior leadership of Hezbollah.
Yeah, so this guy really fucked over Iran on all its proxies.
In Lebanon. Well, again, I'm not able to confirm any of this, but again, to say it once more, it does seem to me that, well, I've never had any doubt that Iran had indeed been deeply penetrated by American and Israeli intelligence. And if the informant was Qaani, then it might explain two things. Firstly, why this penetration was so successful, because the head of Iran's covert action service,
the head of Iran's covert action service, that's good. Yeah, Israel would be absolutely thrilled to turn that guy.
Would have been, of course, the best person possible to provide this information to the Americans and to the Israelis. He would have had all of the knowledge, or access to all of the knowledge, to set up these attacks. And it also perhaps explains something else. Why, since the arrest of Qaani, the Americans and the Israelis, in terms of what has been taking place inside Iran...
they seem to have no idea what's going on inside Iran anymore.
Seem to be largely blind. I noticed that this morning, President Trump has been making comments about rumors he has heard that the current supreme leader of Iran, Moqtada Khamenei, the son of the previous supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, who was killed in the strike on the 28th of February. Anyway, Trump has been saying that the current supreme leader, he's been hearing rumors that this supreme leader is also dead. Araghchi, Iran's foreign minister, has now made an immediate statement, something that did not happen on the day when the rumors of Ayatollah Khamenei's death were circulating. But this time, the Iranians, through Foreign Minister Araghchi, have categorically denied this claim by Trump, done so in language which suggests that this story this time, this claim this time, that Muqtada Khamenei has been killed, that this story is untrue. And, well,
The important part
if
is,
so,
why did regime change not happen? I think it has to do with they arrested Qaani, who was supposed to be the regime change guy.
if President Trump is indeed dependent on rumours, and there have, by the way, been all sorts of rumours that Muqtada Khamenei has been either very seriously injured or disfigured, according to to Hegseth, or might actually be dead. Anyway, if the President of the United States is indeed dependent on rumours, then that might also support the conclusion that the key informant that the Americans and the Israelis were relying upon inside Tehran
Is
is
gone.
gone. And that might also have put them in a major disadvantage as they conduct their current offensive against Iran. Now, here, I would say some further things.
Yep.
Assuming that Qaani really was the spy that was briefing the Israelis and the Americans, then it is incredible that the Iranian authorities weren't able to put the pieces together and come to that conclusion long ago. It does seem,
True.
if this video by Mohunt is true, that he was there just before all of the relevant strikes took place, and that the trail clearly points back to him. It seems astonishing that in a country like Iran, people weren't putting the pieces together. Now, according to this video, some people in Iranian counterintelligence were starting to put the pieces together, but there was apparently, even at this level, serious reluctance to actually identify Qaani, the head of the Quds Force, as the likely informant and spy. Just saying. Now, I wonder whether the reason for that is, again,
He does tend to meander a little bit, but everything you say is interesting, so you just have to speed it up the video and it's okay.
that Qaani was reporting directly to the Supreme Leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, and that Khamenei once again placed his personal opinion of people upon which he seems to have...
Basically, this Qaani guy got the trust of the previous Supreme Leader, and that's why he was protected from being called out as a spy. Of course, then when the Supreme Leader died...
perhaps placed undue reliance above the evidence that was being put together by his own security and intelligence services. I have to say, if so, that is consistent with the picture of Khamenei that I have been forming for some time now. In that case, of course, the moment Khamenei was dead,
Yep.
Qaani will have lost his major protector, which is why
So he killed the person that was protecting him from being identified as a spy, and karma came back to bite him.
he was immediately arrested and, according to rumours, apparently executed as well. So that's one thought. The second thought I have is that I wonder whether, given the nature of the Iranian system, one of the factors that led to Qaani being identified, being fingered, was again the involvement of outside parties. The Russians and the Chinese,
Russian and Chinese.
they certainly would have had the resources to keep track of Qaani. They might have had their suspicions about Qaani for a very long time. We know for a fact that these two countries are there, involved in Iran itself, that they have their personnel there. Somebody, and I do believe this was the Russians, recently helped the Iranians jam the Starlink terminals inside Iran, for example. And it could be that whatever suspicions might have already been floating around inside Iran, in Tehran.
But you can see why Trump might have been so confident about U.S. strike if he had the head of Iran's covert actions on his side as a pawn. He just we take out the main leadership and we have the head of covert action, then he can maneuver and help the protesters overthrow the government, etc. But
these hardened as a result of intelligence that was being provided to the Iranian
it
authorities.
seems like the Russians and Chinese fingered Khamenei and got him arrested and executed. So that plan fell apart.
Is about Qaani from Iran's friends. All very difficult to explain, all very mysterious. Things about the secret war always are mysterious. But, to repeat again, if Qaani is gone, then that might explain why the Americans and the Israelis seem to have lost their ability to keep track of Iranian targets, which they have shown with such sureness up to now. And it would explain
that's how they've been assassinating all these leaders in Iran so easily.
Else, because they might have assumed that an individual such as Qaani, such a senior official working for them within the Iranian apparatus, might have been exactly the person to carry out some kind of regime change operation inside Iran. There have been all of these rumors in the Israeli and American media, from Seymour Hersh, for example, about American contacts with senior officials.
It's crazy, the hubris of to just depend so heavily on a dude for such stakes. Yes, absolutely agreed. But at least this offers an explanation. It wasn't like Trump went in. He went in without this dude. It makes even less sense. With this dude, at least you can sort of understand what he was thinking. Oh, we'll have a Venezuela moment because we've got the head of covert actions in Iran on our side.
Senior military and intelligence officials inside Iran. I noticed that in his latest piece, Seymour Hersh specifically said that the Americans were in touch with some people within the IRGC itself. And of course, Qaani was a very senior officer within the IRGC. Just so. So it may be that with Qaani gone, the entire linchpin of whatever conspiracy, regime change conspiracy in Tehran, the Americans and the Israelis were hatching, which was supposed to be activated following Khamenei's death, that the reason that conspiracy fell apart was, as I said, because without Qaani, it couldn't be seen through. Well, I ought to say, at this point, I ought to reveal the fact that I've been having a very long discussion, a very interesting discussion with the US Attorney Robert Barnes, and we've been bouncing ideas off each other about this. But I do want to make it very clear at this point that all of the speculations, all of the ideas, all the points I've made in this program ultimately come from me. Just to say.
Well, anyway, that, I think right there is the real reason for the Iran war. US and Israel had turned the head of covert action in Iran, this General Qaani, and through him we wrecked Hezbollah, we wrecked Assad in Syria, we devastated Iran with all these strikes on leaders, and then through him also we killed the supreme leader. And he was supposed to be our regime change guy after that happened, but he was arrested and executed. And so there is no plans for regime change anymore. Our plans for regime change are gone. And now we're just... Iran is paying us back for everything we've done. So that is the situation, I think, in Iran. So I think that was very interesting.